The Blood of Brothers, Power and Fratricide in the Ottoman Empire. Episode 2, Selim the Grim. They called him Yavuz the Grim, but he was not born grim. He was made that way, by the very law that raised him, by the blood that taught him that love was a liability, by an empire that turned sons into predators, and brothers into prey. Selim was not the eldest. He was not the favorite. But he had something the others didn't, an unflinching will to survive, and a heart cold enough to kill whatever stood in the way, even if that meant his own father, even if that meant his own son. Bayezid, too, was a tired man, a poet sultan, gentle, scholarly, cautious. He had ruled long enough to know that the Ottoman throne was not passed down. It was wrestled, stolen, bled for. And in the final years of his reign, as his health declined, his sons Ahmed, Korkut, and Selim prepared not for succession, but for war. Ahmed was the eldest, the presumed heir. He had friends in the capital, support in the palace, letters that flattered and coins that glittered. Korkut was gentle, a lover of music and philosophy, a man who should have been born to peace, but was instead born into a dynasty that fed on knives and silence. Selim? He was far away in the wild north, sharpening his edge in the fog-covered fields of Crimea, watching, waiting, and then the letters came. Ahmed was moving, making claims, gathering forces. The palace walls began to whisper again. Bayezid, too weak to stop it, tried to slow the fire. He pleaded for peace between his sons. But he knew. This was not a family. This was a battlefield with blood ties, and Selim made the first move. He turned on his own father. He marched toward Constantinople, not to inherit, but to seize. Bayezid, helpless, was forced to abdicate. His guards turned on him, and as he wept beneath the same domes he once ruled, his son, the Grim, sat upon the throne. Selim's message was clear. Mercy is weakness. Sentiment is death. And then came the reckoning. Ahmed, executed. Korkut, poisoned. Their children, strangled. Their wives, banished or married off to erase the bloodline. Selim didn't flinch. He didn't mourn. He ruled. And while the empire trembled at his cold grip, he turned his eyes outward toward the Safavids of Persia, the Mamluks of Egypt, and the ashes of the Caliphate. He believed that only through blood could the Ottomans rise again, and so he drowned the world in it. The Battle of Chaldiran, the annihilation of the Mamluks, the seizure of Mecca and Medina. He did not just expand the empire. He rewrote its destiny. He took the title Caliph Commander of the Faithful. A spiritual claim, yes, but beneath it, a threat that the Ottomans were not merely kings of land, but lords of all Islam. And yet, even the Caliphate could not wash his hands clean. Selim would die not by blade, but by disease. In his final days, he trusted no one. Paranoia had become his bedfellow. Servants disappeared. Advisors whispered behind curtains. His own son, Suleiman, stood at a distance, waiting. When Selim's body was finally laid in its marble tomb, the silence that followed was not grief. It was relief, because the empire had survived the storm, but just barely. Yet the legacy he left behind was far deeper than his conquests. It was the law of blood followed to the letter. Suleiman would inherit his throne, but also his fear. And in that fear,